Hey everyone, just a reminder, we've got a signed David Johnson jersey giveaway going on right now thanks to pristineauction.com. All you have to do to enter the contest is go to fantasypros.com/contest. It takes about 30 seconds to enter, and while you're at it, take a look at Pristine Auction, see what they have for you. They've got hundreds of bidding lots that end daily on authentic gear from only the most trusted sources. You aren't going to believe how affordable it all is either. For example, I saw a signed Corey Davis Titans jersey bought for just $60 yesterday and a signed Mike Ditka Bears jersey for $61. There's definitely something for you, so check out what they have. And when you make a purchase, make sure to let them know Fantasy Pros sent you. That way they continue to do these giveaways. Again, that's pristineauction.com, Pristine. All right, let's talk some football. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Fantasy Pros Football Podcast with Mike Tagliere, and I'm Bobby Sylvester. We're on Twitter at BobbyFantasyPro and at Mike Tagliere NFL. Tags, I saw a note on Twitter that just had me rolling this morning. He said, guys, if you haven't got a guest for the podcast, that's cool, but you don't need one, but don't get Tags to use a I have a sore throat voice and get him to pretend he's a guest because Matt Waldman sounded just like you, man. Oh, I'm sorry, Matt Friedman.
Yeah, no, Matt Friedman, I kid you not, I had like 7 or 8 messages when I woke up the next morning and that podcast came out and saying that Friedman just sounds like a tired version of me. So I'm like, wow, it apparently wasn't just one person. So that was kind of odd to hear. But I'll try and sound a little more upbeat so I can distinguish our voices next time we talk.
Yeah, sounds good. So our guest today is lots of fun. We've got Team Huevos, Brad Evans of Yahoo Sports joining us. So I thought it was the perfect show to give bold predictions. Then we're going to talk about who might be the next Alvin Kamara or Kareem Hunt. Brad can be found on Twitter at Yahoo Noise. And if you aren't already following him, I don't think I can really help you. Brad, thanks for taking the time to talk to us.
Gracias, amigos. It is 10:35 Mountain Standard Time here in the beautiful Mile High City. Is it time for tequila? Because I think it is.
It's always time for tequila in the Evans household, isn't that right?
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, even Kirby the Gambler, my little 23-pound Norfolk Terrier, yes, he's a chunky monkey. He is slurping down the love juice as we speak.
So here's the deal, guys. This show is going to have a long shelf life, so I don't want to spend too much time on the news at all before we get into the meat of the show. There are a few pieces, though, I want to mention really quick. Dez is meeting with the Browns Thursday. We don't really need to talk about that since we've already discussed what would happen if Dez ended up on the Browns quite a bit. Rashad Penny, though, flew out to Philly last night to get surgery on a broken finger that we didn't know about. Apparently, he's going to be questionable for week 1. Brad, where are you drafting him now, and what about Carson?
Well, Chris Carson's ADP, if you look at MFL 10s over the last about 3 weeks, he's gone from a player going roughly around 125 overall to around 100 overall. So what is this going to do? It's just going to spike that ADP even higher. I think you're going to see another probably 20 to 25 pick jump for him over the next 2 to 3 weeks as we enter into the heart of the fantasy draft season. But I would, invest in him reluctantly. Look, I like Chris Carson. I like the advanced analytics. This is a guy that totaled 6.8 evaded tackles per game a season ago. He's adept in the pass game, but he's still 7th-round pedigree. And Rashad Penny, a guy that this organization traded up for, who was showing a vast improvement in pass blocking, which was his largest downside, to go along with the fact that, he was the yak leader among all FBS running backs last season, number 1 at elusive rating as well. Then with San Diego State, I think he showed better than what the box score indicated in the preseason opener. I'm relishing the opportunity here for Rashad Penny because what this is telling me is he is going to be slashed. He is now on the discount rack. And, he's a player that, could be that pair of Air Jordans you get for $20. So in my estimation, his ADP right now right around 55 to 60 in that range. It's probably going to dip as far as maybe 75 to 85. And I will say this, and I'm going to say it again. Week 3, Dallas Cowboys at home. Circle it on your calendar. Scrawl it in blood. That will be the breakout game for Rashad Penny. Let the other people believe that Chris Carson's going to be the guy full season.
I love it. If we knew Rashad Penny was the starter week 1, I'd have him as a top 8-team running back, and I would be thrilled to draft him. I think that's what we're going to get the majority of the season, so I'm still fine getting him at his lowered ADP. even with the injury tags. Where do you stand, man?
I mean, all I took away from that is I want to know where Brad's getting Jordans for $20 because, like, one of my Christmas presents this year was a pair of Space Jam Jordans that I didn't get when I was a kid, and I really wanted them, and my wife paid astronomical money for them. So I want to know where that happens. But in regards to Rashad Penny,
is that
Chris
a humble
Carson,
brag saying that you're super rich?
No, it's not. She paid more. It's basically that's the reason I never got them because I was unwilling to spend money on them. But no, in regards to Rashad Penny and Carson, I think Carson is a player. If you're drafting, if you can get him a discount, let's say he stays around that pick 100 range, like your league is all about Rashad Penny. Let's say that you could pair Chris Carson with someone like Mark Ingram, who's suspended. Maybe you could pair him with someone like Aaron Jones, who's suspended for the first couple games, and get some use out of him, because I do believe Chris Carson, we've heard from 3 different beat reporters that he's the starter, and this was before the whole broken finger thing, so to know that Rashad Penny is going to miss more time, I mean, as much as people want to hate Pete Carroll, we have to give him props for what he did with the whole Matt Flynn and Russell Wilson thing. He started the best player. And from what beat reporters have been saying, that Chris Carson's been the better player as of right now, but that Penny would be involved. So
maybe he is, but there's no chance it lasts. But Penny is way better than Carson. I don't care what any beat writer is saying.
I'm not saying that Penny's not more talented. I believe he's more talented. And I actually would still draft Rashad Penny over Chris Carson, but I've narrowed that gap, guys. Like, I have Rashad Penny down right around that RB 33 range now, and I have Carson up at RB 39. So I don't think it's a clear-cut situation anymore.
Wow, 33 and 39, man. I think more is coming out of this backfield. I know the offensive line isn't great, but I think they'll be able to run the ball all right with Russell Wilson.
CJ Procise is the guy. Let's get him.
Ha! Maybe he's the Alvin Kamara this year. You never know.
Wow, you are starting out the bold prediction show with fire. What?
We're going to talk about that later. We're going to, by the way, at the end of the show, we're going to take our stabs at which players can become this year's Alvin Kamara.
Oh, I can't wait for that. I love bold predictions, but this segment at the end that we're doing, I think I might like that even more, because that's what's going to win people fantasy leagues, right?
Let's see. I mean, it could be CJ Procise, guys. I'm not giving away my guys just yet, though.
Okay. Well, before we start making our bold predictions, I want to remind you all listening to the show, we have a deal going on right now that's going to help you dominate your drafts and the entire season. In fact, it's been outlawed in some leagues because they think it's cheating if you use, the draft assistant and all the premium features we have to go along with it. Drafts are right around the corner, and you can get our highest premium package for 6 months for just $10 total. If you're already a premium user, you can extend for 6 months for just $10 total. All you have to do is go to fantasypros.com/offer, or if you're already premium, go to fantasypros.com/extend. Basically, what it comes down to is you deposit $10 to draft.com as a new user. You get to do these best ball drafts that Tags and I are always doing, the weekly live snake drafts to build your DFS lineups on draft.com. It's a blast. Website's easy to use. The app might even be better. And it's just too good of a deal to pass up, because you can win money with that $10. Again, fantasypros.com/offer and fantasypros.com/extend. Hey, by the way, guys, I had a number of people ask me on Twitter who my closest athletic comp was from the combine. And for players, I was right there with Jarvis Landry, except the size and bench press. But again, he didn't set a world record during his combine, so it's kind of a wash. The closest, though, was my boy Stephen Morris. Same exact times on 4 events. I can't throw the ball 1,000 miles, but again, the world record.
But again, Stephen Morris also not on an NFL team. So there's that.
Well, I mean, I've been getting calls. I'm sure Stephen Morris has too, but he's probably running for president in 2020. Who knows what he's doing?
Yeah, Brad. Bobby he did the combine because he lost a bet to me last year, and he just recorded it. And what was your 40 time? 4.7?
I don't want to give it away, man. It was better than Danny Amendola's 4.7. I got 4.63, dude.
That's impressive.
He's quite the little athlete. I mean, he's what? You said you're 5'8", 100 and what?
165 or something.
Yeah, he's a Jarvis Landry sized man.
So he's got deceptive athleticism.
For sure.
A bunch of people think that I was lying and stuff, but dude, it's real. Just watch the video and you'll see it. It's really fast. I was moving.
Bobby could play for the Patriots. Let's just say that.
And for the record, my 40 time is right up there with Uncle Rico's.
All right, guys, let's do bold predictions. Brad, you're going to start us off here, so set the pace, man.
Well, you guys know that I've been beating this drum pretty hard. I mean, almost to a deafening proportion. Royce Freeman's going to be a top 10 running back this season. I have been on this bandwagon since he was drafted by the Denver Broncos. Look, I live the Mile High City. It is rare that I get information that I would consider inside. I'm a Chicago Bears fan. I wish that information was coming from the Windy City, but I actually have some really good resources here on the ground, and they have been telling me since the NFL draft that the Denver Broncos have been looking for their new Terrell Davis. It failed miserably. John Elway did with Monte Ball. He's trying to remedy and rectify some of those past mistakes. And that's why they brought in Freeman. It's a guy at 3.39 yards after contact per attempt average for the Oregon Ducks last season, number 11 in elusive rating. I know what you're saying. Well, it's the Pac-12. An obese Kalen Ballage could go out there and post some stupid numbers and he was posting stupid numbers even, being svelte and in shape at times. But in my estimation, I think Freeman is going to be the guy. Devontae Booker is tofu to the T-bone steak, which is Freeman. I think it's going to be 275, 300 touches, 1,300 combined yards, 35 receptions, 8 to 10 total touchdowns for Freeman. That'll tuck him inside the RB top 10.5 point PPR.
That's a perfect first take, man. First of all, I totally agree with you. I love Royce Freeman, and I think it's clear that he's the starter. I think it's clear that he is going to be a workhorse in this running back as well. And if you're a workhorse in the NFL, you've got a chance at being a top 10 running back.
I want to. This is the hot take episode, so yes, these might sound a little extreme, but Brad, I want to know. Where are you comfortable taking Freeman? Like, let's say you're in a league with a bunch of guys that they know what they're doing, right? And they know that Freeman's going to win that job. Where do you feel comfortable? Like, what gets to the point where it's too much for you to reach for Freeman?
Well, I think the ceiling for him probably is right around round 4 in a 12-team setting. I think that's an appropriate reach, to be honest. And that's a one thing that I think fails a lot of fantasy players out there. They are married to ADP data. And they were like, I got to follow this. If I wait another round, I know I can get that player there, and they're going to miss out on a golden opportunity. What I always preach to people time and time again is to get your guys. If you believe that the nonsense coming out of my mouth is going to come to fruition with Royce Freeman, and he's going to be a top 10 running back, and he's sitting there in round 4, get him on your squad. Because, when the dust settles and it's all over come year's end, if he is a key cog on your team and was one of the main reasons he got you the championship game or maybe even got you the title, even to the fantasy playoffs, nobody's going to care where you drafted him way back in August. So I've said this too repeatedly, fantasy is divided into thirds. 1/3 the draft, 1/3 trades and transactions, and 1/3 plain old good luck. Do you survive the injuries? Do you survive the roster turnover? So if Royce Freeman is there in round 4 in a 12-team setting, grab him.
He's going in the 5th round in most cases. With that said, if you want to make sure you get him, I think you've got to take him before pick 45, 44. Otherwise, someone like me or Brad's going to snipe you.
What's funny is you guys are the ones that are extremely. I was really big on Freeman coming out of college. Like, I actually loved his tape, and he reminds me of Jordan Howard. But the thing is,
that's exactly what I said yesterday. That's funny that you said that. I mean, I love that comp because he has the same body type. And Liz Lowe's and I vehemently disagreed on this because I said, doesn't he remind you? Yeah, exactly. I said, does he remind you of Jordan Howard? And she goes, no, I don't think he relishes contact. I'm like, did you watch his tape at Oregon? He certainly does. He's a violent downhill runner.
Maybe because everyone was just running away from him, then he couldn't make contact.
Tags, I'm ecstatic that you and I are on the same page here because that's the exact comp that came to mind when I saw him on that touchdown run in week 1 of the preseason.
Yeah, for sure. The only thing I think holding Royce Freeman back could be the potential coaching because I don't think that they have like a game changer as the offensive coordinator. The offensive line underperformed last year. Now, granted, they have some pieces on it that should be really good. If Garrett Bowles takes a step forward, Ron Leary's there. Obviously, they added Jared Veld here from Arizona, who was one of their better offensive linemen. So, I mean, I think the hope is there for Freeman. I have him as my number 43 overall player, so I don't think it's a stretch by any means to say he's a 4th-round pick at all. I want them to cut Devontae Booker because I'm sick of hearing about him. He's not good, and he shouldn't be playing.
Well, and just to kind of add on what you're saying, 2 points. One, the Denver Broncos were actually number 9 in run blocking efficiency according to Football Outsiders last year. So what really failed that line was pass blocking. They were miserable in that category. They're in bottom of the barrel overall in terms of pass blocking efficiency. So you got Garrett Bowles there and some of the other Veld here, as you mentioned, some of the other guys that are on that line, and Bowles has added some weight. I think they're going to be much improved, especially given the lack of pressure placed on it with Case Keenum now at the controls instead of the nincompoops that were running a quarterback there. Yeah. And I'm with you on Devontae Booker, and I think he's going to be rendered obsolete here in short order because this team loves Phillip Lindsay, undrafted kid out of Colorado. He's made waves throughout the entire preseason, and also in camp. And if he pops in week 2 of the preseason, week 3 of the preseason, and Booker just kind of sloughs, I would not be at all shocked if Booker gets cut, Lindsey wins the 3rd down back job, and then Royce Freeman is the sledgehammer on 1st and 2nd down.
That's funny. We talked about that exactly on yesterday's show.
Yep, Philip Lindsay.
Tags, what's your first bold prediction, man?
Yeah, my first bold prediction is that Joe Mixon finishes a top 3 running back behind only Le'Veon Bell and Todd Gurley, and will be looked at. This is like the part that I want everybody to remember. He will be looked at as an elite running back last year, and he's going to go as a top 6 pick.
I love it.
I think that's sexy, and I got a little anecdotal story for you. I was in the Stopa Auction Invitational, which took place in Vegas, and I had a whirlwind about 24 hours. I was in Fort Worth. I was interviewing some of the NFL players that were there at the National Fantasy Football Convention. We interviewed Michael Gallup, Dede Westbrook, Laquan Treadwell. Of course, that really moved the meter for ratings on our Fantasy Record podcast. But I hopped on a plane, grabbed a bottle of tequila at the airport liquor store there in Vegas, which is ultra convenient. And I was probably a half a bottle in, and I vehemently did not want Joe Mixon, and I played that dangerous bid-up game to try to, move the draft along more quickly, and I got caught with him at $28. And at that point, and I threw out LaShawn McCoy to start the draft because that news had just hit for $10 and went crickets, and I'm looking, I'm smelling like a rose right now because I think it's going to happen to the guy. But I was so pissed off that I had Joe Mixon at $28.
I would have been too.
And then my the next player got thrown out was a guy that I wanted, Jordan Howard, and he only went for 22. And but now, seeing Mixon and hearing your perspective, I'm feeling pretty damn good about that. So I appreciate the ego boost, Tags.
Oh, yes. No, Joe Mixon. So Joe Mixon is, to me, is a very comparable player to Le'Veon Bell. And there's a lot of parallels in the career. Now, Le'Veon Bell, when he walked into the league, he didn't have to get through Jeremy Hill or Giovanni Bernard. But the thing is like once Jeremy Hill went down last year and Joe Mixon and Gio Bernard were left, before Mixon hurt his ankle, because if you remember, he suffered a high ankle sprain. But there was like a 5-game stretch in there. I went through and looked at it. He had over a 70% of the touch share compared to Gio Bernard. There were only a handful of running backs in the NFL who were seeing that type of share in their backfield last year, and they're all being drafted as first-round picks this year. Joe Mixon's not. Now, granted, that offensive line was bad last year. I'm not going to mistake you there. They did address it this offseason. They traded for Cordy Glenn. They drafted Billy Price to play up the middle. I'm not saying that they're going to be great immediately. I'm saying that they've made some improvement there. The offense, obviously, they changed coordinators in the middle of the year. That's really rough on a lot of offensive players because, you saw the plays per game. They were under 60 plays per game. That will kill an offense in terms of production. The entire offseason to work, to know that they're lining up Joe Mixon at wide receiver, which, by the way, is his best attribute. Like, Joe Mixon is a fine 1-2 down back. He's okay there. I don't think he's a Leonard Fournette. But I think that he's one of the best receivers in football. So therefore, thinking that Giovanni Bernard is going to steal that role, I think you're wrong. And I think you saw Joe Mixon in the first preseason game, what he could do in the receiving game. So, yeah, man, the offense is the only thing that could hold him back. But I think the talent is there. I believe he will be considered elite heading into 2019.
I'm pumped, man. You got me on board on Mixon, and I watched that game. He looks like a bell cow. They're just gonna say, "Sorry, Gio Bernard, we do not need you anymore." I know that a lot of people think Mixon's ceiling is capped because of Bernard's presence, and Bernard's been great, but Mixon can do it better, all 3 down. So they might as well. And you're right. That's what they did for 1 point. And it seems that that's what they're going to do going forward.
Hey, guys, just how about this kind of outlandish take? Why doesn't the Washington Redskins front office pick up the phone and dial the Cincinnati front office and see what the price tag is for Gio Bernard?
Well, yeah, they drafted Mark Walton. That's his replacement, by the way,
Exactly.
because Gio's on his last year of his contract. He's gone after this year. And by the way, the Bengals have drafted 2 running backs in the top 3 rounds since Gio Bernard's been on the roster. You could tell they don't want him to be the guy. They know he's not that guy. So if Mark Walton picks up the playbook as fast as they would need him to, I don't think it's a bad thing at all.
Here's my first one, guys. This one's not as exciting as the future ones, but Eric Ebron finishes 2nd on the Colts in yards and 1st in touchdowns on his way to a top 5 tight end season.
Ooh, that's hot.
That's Team Huevos. Huevos gigantes.
They're using him all over the field, and I'm looking at Ryan Grant, and I like Ryan Grant, but he's going where he's going for a reason. I mean, he's not an exceptional athlete or anything along those lines. Yeah, he's going to be on the field, but Andrew Luck spreads the ball all over the place. He's used 2 tight ends multiple times, and I think Ebron's going to be the move tight end here. He's got it done. There have not been many tight ends in football who have done what he's done over his first 4 years of the season. Yeah, he's kind of a bust because of where he was drafted and the expectations and everything, but he's been fine, and he's still young enough that I don't think he's hit his prime yet. Tight ends tend to mature a lot later, so getting with Andrew Luck, I think Eric Ebron could be a monster, guys.
Crickets. I've been burned by Eric Ebron so many times that I have a very bitter perspective. And the biggest issue that I have with him is just the consistency in terms of reeling catches in. I mean, he had the 26th best among tight ends catch rate in the league last year at 61.6% with a competent quarterback throwing to the pill in Matthew Stafford. There are still question marks about Andrew Luck, though he's starting to answer some of those. You know, I want to see more in preseasons week 2 and 3 and his progression and recovery from shoulder surgery. But you know, with Jack Doyle there and, T.Y. Hilton, I understand your perspective about Ryan Grant. I think there's too many question marks. But, I mean, you are getting him for nothing. So that's the upside. It's one of those things, like, if you truly believe that Eric Ebron was going to be the bee's knees and you want to get him on your roster, go ahead, because he is highly expendable at his price point. I'm not seeing it.
It's breakout or streamer, and I'm fine playing that game. If I miss on the top 10 guys, Ebron's the one I'm going to. It's not George Kittle. I think George Kittle and Garrett Selleck are going to kind of split targets like they did with Jimmy Garoppolo in those 5 games last year. So it's Ebron for me.
I think the lead in the team in touchdowns, that's the stretch for me. He has 11 touchdowns in 4 years from Matthew Stafford, and Matthew Stafford throws touchdowns. So I think that I don't think he's the red zone guy that people thought he would be. He's dropped. He's always among the league leaders at tight end and drops, as Brad said. So, I mean, I think Jack Doyle's a very reliable tight end. I think Ebron is going to have his spurts. I think he could be used as a streamer in some cases, but I still think Jack Doyle is just too good to keep off the field. Like, Jack Doyle showed he could do it last year with Jacoby Brissett. It is the quarterback. Now, Ebron better fits the move tight end role, so I'm not gonna sit here and say that it's not a possibility at all. I just don't think he's a big touchdown guy. I would rather take Ryan Grant over someone like production wise over Eric Ebron.
I want Ryan Grant too. I've got Ryan Grant and Eric Ebron on a ton of my best ball teams. Brad, let's move on to you for your number 2 here.
Well, I got a number of these too that we can continue to throw out. I got more than I think I got 10 listed, but let's look at wide receiver here for a minute. I'm going to say Mike Williams explodes on the fantasy scene and tallies at least a 61,007 line this season, which would place him, I believe, inside the wide receiver top 24.
Sweet. I like that one a lot. I mean, don't forget, Keenan Allen is injury prone. I know it's kind of been fluky injuries, but those fluky injuries keep happening to him. So if Allen was to go down, Williams could be even better than that.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's certainly got the skill set. He's a first-round draft pick, a guy that can really climb the ladder. And here's the deal. The Chargers have yet to sign or re-sign Antonio Gates. So what they have done as a coaching staff, Anthony Lynn, has pegged Mike Williams to be that red zone threat, to take over for Gates. No Hunter Henry, of course, as part of the equation after blowing out, his knee in a non-contact exercise. He didn't run a fast, straight line and remain upright like you did. Okay, in his 40-yard exhibition earlier on this summer. But, I think Mike Williams, a guy that could really high point the ball extraordinarily well. He's working on the route tree, kind of adding branches to it. He's going to see premium coverage working opposite of Keenan Allen. Tyrell Williams took a step back last year. I think Mike is really going to step forward in a nourishing offensive environment. And his ADP, guys, is still cheap. It's absurd. It's like 145 to 150, depending upon where you're, looking at average draft position values. I mean, he's a guy you're getting largely as a wide receiver 5, as a bench commodity, who I think is really going to take that step forward.
Yeah, he actually gets to practice with the team this preseason. Phillip Rivers throws a ton of yards every year. It's happening, right, Tags?
Guys, I don't know how, like Brad said it, I don't know how a guy that's starting for the Chargers with Phillip Rivers is being drafted outside the top 140 players. Like, I don't know how that's happening. Mike Williams, by the way, he's the only red zone guy on the roster right now. I mean, Keenan Allen underperformed in the touchdown category, but his yardage was buku last year. I think Keenan Allen and Mike Williams can coexist, but I think Mike Williams turns into the almost like the tight end red zone target that Phillip Rivers has had over the last so many years with Antonio Gates and Hunter Henry. He needs that guy in the red zone, and there's nobody else in this team that could do it unless you think Virgil Green is all of a sudden going to come out of a cocoon and finish as a top 10 tight end. It's not going to happen. Mike Williams, I've written it multiple times in articles already that I would not blink if I saw Mike Williams score 8 touchdowns this year. And if he's scoring 8 touchdowns, he's going to be over 600, 700 yards, and he's going to be fantasy options. So, and if something does happen to Keenan Allen, Mike Williams is going to go bananas. Like, he's going to be like Vincent Jackson back when he was in San Diego. So I like the call on Mike Williams. When you're building your bench, you look for players exactly like him. So I love that call.
All right, Tags, what's your second one, man?
Everybody's going to come at me, and it's fine. But I'm going to say it already. Sammy Watkins outscores Tyreek Hill.
Oh, that's not crazy. That's not crazy at all.
Yeah, but people are still going to hate him. I mean, Tyreek Hill's going in the top 10 wide receivers. I was on a radio show this morning and just laughing about that. And I'm thinking everyone listening to me is going to hate me.
Well, it's recency bias at its finest. That's what that is. Everybody's banking on Tyreek to have sustainable numbers, which, if you look at it, there's no way that he can match his level of production if his target share and red zone target share duplicate from last season. There's no way. I mean, that was almost historically efficient. It's like Alvin Kamara. You know, there's a touchdown percentage that is unsustainable, and that logic applies to Tyreek Hill. Now, as Sammy Watkins is dispersed in multi-dimensions as they've been toying with him throughout training camp and this offseason, I could definitely see it as long as his lower extremities don't disintegrate come week one.
That's a big part.
Hill's targets are going backward, too. And don't forget, I mean, Pat Mahomes, you can say what you want about his arm and everything, but he has a huge step down from what Alex Smith gave them last year. So I'm thinking it is a disaster season, a big bust for Tyreek Hill. We just came out with this piece where we asked like 70 experts who were the biggest busts, and Tyreek Hill was by far the number one wide receiver.
Based on where he's being drafted, yeah. And the reason I said Sammy Watkins outscores him is because it's supposed to be a bold take. And, I mean, looking at the ADP, I think it's considered that Tyreek Hill's going as a top 28 pick. You have Sammy Watkins going outside the top 65. So it's quite a distance between the two. And I don't think Tyreek Hill's a bad pick in like the 4th or 5th round. I'm fine with him there. He's going to give you big weeks, but he's not going to deliver as a low-end wide receiver one, guys.
Yeah, he's being drafted in the first 3 rounds, so there's no chance you're getting him there, man. And, Sammy Watkins, dude, he didn't get to practice with the team last year. He traded to Los Angeles right before the preseason. He didn't know it. I mean, this is a guy who thinks the earth is flat. You think he can learn an NFL playbook in like a week?
Is he seriously a flat earther?
He is, man.
Yeah, he was last year. It happened. Yeah, that's scary stuff.
Oh, God.
That's why I had to run the combine, is because I bet on him. If I would have known that, dude, I would have bet on anybody. I would have bet on Keelan Cole instead of him.
You know what's funny, guys? Fred, you mentioned drafting on last year's stats. Someone questioned me earlier. He said that I saw Julio Jones was ranked over DeAndre Hopkins, and I stopped reading your rankings article. And I laughed. I said, well, I mean, if we were replaying the 2017 season, I could see where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
All right, guys, I'm pumped about this next one because I'm a huge believer in this kid, and you better believe I'm going to be watching his next game on NFL Game Pass. Only with NFL Game Pass do you get every out-of-market preseason game live. The top rookies, comeback players, new players on new teams, it all happens in the preseason, and it's going to give you a huge leg up on the competition in fantasy football. I can't wait to see the Jags take on the Vikings this weekend because it's one of the best secondaries, and we'll see if what they're saying about DJ Chark being the most impressive wideout on the team carries any weight. With NFL Game Pass, I can watch DJ Chark and Keelan Cole against one of the best secondaries in football, and if I miss the game, I can replay it after it's aired. Whoever you want to watch this preseason, you'll need NFL Game Pass to do so if you're out of market. Will Baker Mayfield win the starting quarterback job? How's Jordy Nelson going to fit in with the Raiders? Can Kirk Cousins take the Vikings to the next level? Make sure to watch all the action this preseason with NFL Game Pass. Best of all, you can kick off the 2018 NFL season with a 7-day free trial of NFL Game Pass. Sign up now at NFL.com/FantasyPros. Game on. All right, guys, here's my number 2, and no, it is not DJ Chark. It's Keelan Cole that I'm excited about, okay?
Oh, God, here we go.
Keelan Cole receives for over 1,000 yards, finishes as the top 20 wideout.
Wow.
That's bold.
I mean, you got elephant-sized huevos with Eric Ebron and now Keelan Cole. That's a fascinating one because somebody is going to emerge, I think, in this wide receiver core. I think the $64,000 question in Jacksonville is, will this team be more aggressive vertically? Now, I talked to D.D. Westbrook. I actually brought this exact question up to him, and D.D. said that's what the coaching staff has been preaching all offseason. We got to stretch the field. Now, D.D.'s been, I think, maybe the most impressive according to local accounts this offseason and so far in training camp in the preseason. Keelan Cole is obviously a burner. Is he going to see enough target share, though? That's the question to get you to that 1,000-yard plateau. I'm not so sure of that. I would put my money more on a D.D. than I would a Keelan Cole, but I like the boldness.
Bring it. Keelan Cole led the NFL in receiving over the final 5 weeks of the season when he finally got to start. He was awesome.
Come on, guys. Marquise Lee was out during, I think, 2.5, 3 of those games. Marquise Lee's he's the only wide receiver in Jacksonville that I would draft. The only one.
I mean, I'm not drafting any of them.
Yeah, that's probably a good call. This is Leonard Fournette's team, by the way.
Yeah, it is Leonard Fournette's team. Blake Bortles been a top 13 quarterback each of the last 3 seasons, though. There's going to be points to be had there, man. And Keelan Cole was awesome when he finally got a chance. There is a chance here that he has a big breakout season. Apparently nobody works harder than him. I'm a big believer, man. He's an athlete, too.
Well, here's the thing. The Jags have told us different, though. The reason that, I'm not saying that Keelan Cole's not a fine player, that he could be a player in this league, but I don't think there's going to be multiple options in Jacksonville. And Jacksonville told us everything we needed to know. They went out there and they re-signed Marquise Lee to a big contract, basically the one that Allen Robinson got. And then they went out and signed Dante Moncrief to a 10-year one. Oh, I don't want to talk about it. And then they drafted DJ Chark in the second round, which, by the way, he didn't belong anywhere near that territory. So they brought 3 receivers back. So, I mean, it's, to me, and they have D.D. Westbrook on the roster, who has been turning some heads apparently. So I just think that this is too crowded. Marquise Lee is the only one on this team who has been consistent in the offense in terms of target share. He's in the top 30 wide receivers over the last 2 years in targets. So it's a more crowded room. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend that he's going to continue to do that. But I still think he's the number one just because of what they paid him to be. He knows the offense. He's got some rapport with Bortles. But it's still, again, I think Brett hit it on the head. I don't think we should probably draft any of them.
Well, the other thing we got to remember, too, is that this team is constructed to control the clock. So, they got the best defense in the NFL. I will fight anybody over that. If you're a Rams, flag waiver, Minnesota guy, that's fine. But it's Jacksonville all day, and it's going to be a ton of Leonard Fournette. If game scripts go the way we all anticipate as positive, then it's going to be a ton of Fournette, after halftime. So it's going to, obviously limit the shootout appeal and then thusly limit the overall volume upside of guys like Keelan Cole, D.D. Westbrook, Marquise Lee. That's why they're just unattractive in general.
I'm really glad that you guys are disagreeing with me because I want to keep his ADP down so I can keep getting Keelan Cole.
I don't think you have to worry about that. He plays for Jacksonville. You're good.
All right, let's move on over to you for number 3.
Well, I love Lamar Jackson, guys, and I think Lamar Jackson is going to overtake Joe Flacco by week 10, and then once he overtakes him from that point on, he will be a top 5 fantasy quarterback.
Sweet.
Whew.
And again, this is not a stretch.
I know, man. Yeah, because he's as good of a runner as Michael Vick, and that is not hyperbole. And he's a better passer.
On the Scoville scale, which measures heat of certain peppers, this is like a jalapeno take.
That is hot. Okay, so Joe Flacco's not being benched unless he's hurt. I'm on that wagon. Like, I'm not saying that Joe Flacco deserves a whole bunch, but Lamar Jackson's clearly not ready. He doesn't look it. Now, is he going to be a fantasy quarterback? Brad, if you told me that he was going to be if he was going to be starting the final 6 weeks, I would pick him up for those 6 weeks because he's going to be fantastic. Like, he's going to go bananas in terms of his rushing ability. I do not doubt that. But as a passer, he's got a long way to go. I think we've seen that in the preseason. He played against some third and fourth string defenses. I don't think that he's ready as a passer. I think Baltimore knows that. And I also don't think they have the offensive mind controlling the offense to kind of call an offense with him in it. So I think that Harbaugh, I've said this before, I think Harbaugh might go down with the Flacco ship. He might just say, I understand what the team did. I understand they had to get a backup in here, but this is Joe Flacco's team.
You know who's not ready to pass the football in the NFL? Joe Flacco.
Yeah, he could complete a pass to the Jolly Green Giant from 5 yards out. That was a major issue from last year. Again, week 10 is the Ravens bye week. So that could be the week where the keys are given to Lamar Jackson and he finishes the rest of the season off, because in weeks 11 and 12, the Ravens are at home against Cincinnati and Oakland. And I think this team has got to underachieve in general. I don't think, the over-under on wins in Vegas, I think, is 8 right now on the Ravens, and I'm hammering the under all day long. And it's funny is that, most of the bets are siding. It's like 65% of the wagers right now in Sin City siding with the over on the Ravens, and I just don't see it. So if this starts to circle the drain early in the year, maybe the Ravens start off like 1-4, 2-4, 2-5, something along that range, then I think the whispers for Lamar Jackson are going to turn into screams, and you're going to see that transition in week number 10 if John Harbaugh has any functional brain cells.
That's a good way to put it. And, I'm not doing this just to make you say what tags or anything like that. But, remember, Tim Tebow was a top 12 fantasy quarterback.
All right, fantasy points.
When he was the passer, because he ran the ball so efficiently. Lamar Jackson's going to run the ball better than that.
Oh, no, I agree with you there. That's why I said, as a fantasy quarterback, I believe Lamar Jackson will put up points. I do. I worry about his safety because he doesn't seem like one like Russell Wilson who's going to run out of bounds very often, which that scares me because he's not a very big guy. Like Cam Newton's built to withstand some of those hits because he's such a big dude. But Lamar Jackson's a very little dude. But again, in fantasy, I believe it. And I want to go back to what you said. yes, he's probably as good as runner as Michael Vick was, but he is not the passer Vick was. He doesn't have the arm. And Vick became if you guys remember that magical Philly season when Vick came back?
Oh yeah,
my God,
the Washington game.
That was unfair. Like legitimately, it was unfair to play against him as a quarterback that year. Like he was just everything went his way, and obviously things went down afterwards. But for that 1 year, Michael Vick was truly like impossible to defend.
Well, it could be like RG3, his teammate in Baltimore. RG3 just came out like gangbusters in his first season with Washington, and everybody was on that bandwagon. And I think Lamar Jackson has very similar characteristics. Now, I think he's going to be a better long-term quarterback than RG3, but these dual threats, they typically come in, unless you're Cam Newton or Michael Vick, and they steal the show, then they flame out rapidly. So Lamar could have a similar transition. He could be this year's Deshaun Watson.
All right, Tags, let's keep it moving, man. What's your number 3 bold prediction?
This is a two-parter. Jordan Reed outscores Zach Ertz, and Trey Burton outscores Jimmy Graham.
I like both of those.
Mm-hmm.
I really love the last one because I'm a Bears fan.
Yeah. Trey Burton was brought in for a reason. Like Matt Nagy, when he took over the play calling duties, it was week 13 through week 16 when they had the starters in the field. So it was only a 4-week sample. So I'm not going to go over the top. But do you know that he targeted tight ends 43% of the time in those games? That's what I'm saying. It's like Matt Nagy knows what's up. That was one of the first moves in free agency for them to go out and get Trey Burton. I said it on the show before, Bobby, I know you're on board with this too, is that Trey Burton legitimately has top 5 tight end upside this season. I understand it's scary to draft a tight end who's never had a starting gig before as a top 10 tight end, but I'm telling you, he's going to be stable. He's going to be fine.
His ceiling is like Zach Ertz's floor, though, man. That's the problem I have with this. When you said that, I was like, yeah, Trey Burton, a hot take, cool. And then you said Zach Ertz, and I'm mad at you.
Well, that was Jordan Reed over Zach Ertz. Trey Burton over Jimmy Graham.
That's even worse. I mean, I like Trey Burton and Jordan Reed, but come on, man. Zach Ertz is the dude.
I'm not saying he's not a good tight end. I'm not saying that at all, but I think people forget how good Jordan Reed actually is.
Sure. What's he going to play? 12 games? That's his max.
But he's feeling 100 times better.
He's going to be great in those 12 games. He's not beating Zach Ertz. I am not letting us finish this show until you agree with me.
I'm not agreeing with you.
Okay, that's fine.
I think you guys got to go over the top Stallone style and just arm wrestle this one out.
Deal.
I think that's the only solution to determine the true winner here.
That would be really embarrassing. His Tags is a very strong man.
But your spark score is in like the 99th percentile based on your combine.
I did -1 bench presses.
Yeah, that's no bueno. You're in trouble. You better start pounding the protein shakes.
Oh, man.
All right, what do you think about that one, Brad?
I mean, I don't think either one's outlandish. I think Jordan Reed is a sensational value right now, going just shy of pick number 100 in average drafts because of the injury downside being baked in. And, losing Darius Guice, and I still can't believe this, and I'm not buying it wholeheartedly, that Jay Gruden's going to lean on the pair of sloths in Samaje Perine and Rob Kelly. And we know that Chris Thompson, through his own admission, is not going to be 100% until November. I still think they're going to kick the tires on one of these running backs is going to get cut, or maybe they're going to, flirt with a trade, as we mentioned Gio Bernard earlier on in the program, as maybe being a target. Maybe Mark Ingram's a target. You just never know. But if they do stick with the current triumvirate that this team has at running back, I think you're going to see even more Jordan Reed being almost an extension of the run, right? Kind of like Julian Edelman in New England, operating out of the slot, just kind of nickel and diming defenses. And Alex Smith, obviously, has got a great rapport with previous tight ends. Obviously Travis Kelce. And as long as Reed is upright, he's proven to be a top 5 commodity before at this position. And he certainly can do that again. So I think he's worth, drafting at his ADP because he's so dirt cheap.
He was every bit as efficient as Gronk when he was healthy. And the thing is, nothing has changed since last year where you guys were drafting him 40th and 50th overall, right? He still has the injury risk baked in just like he did last year. Everybody knew that. So you're drafting him 50 spots later, that's a value.
And just a comment on Trey Burton. When he has been given opportunities, previously in Philadelphia, he's thrived. He was number 5 last season among all tight ends in fantasy points per opportunity. So even though he is an undersized tight end, he is plus in terms of athleticism, and he's a very astute and sharp route runner. And for a young, inexperienced green quarterback and a Mitchell Trubisky, he is going to be that binky. He's going to be that safety blanket in the short to intermediate field. And with the Bears now running more 12 sets, which is where Trubisky performs better than in the 11 formations that we saw more often under John Fox, who's a complete blathering idiot. I think, Trubisky's going to take that step forward, and it's going to be because of a weapon like Trey Burton, along with an Anthony Miller and a Tariq Cohen, these guys that can really perform highly in high percentage throw areas.
All right, here's my number 3, Tags. You're going to love this one. Sony Michel is still going to score 12 touchdowns.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I'm just going to add on to yours. One of mine that I had is like a backup in case someone stole one of mine. I had that Sony Michel outscores Jerick McKinnon.
Yeah, I think you guys are both crazy. Have fun with that.
I thought you were going to agree with us, man.
No, absolutely not. Rex Burkhead's the running back you want to own in New England, in my opinion. I think he's going to lead the team in touchdowns. I think he's going to be locked into a red zone role, at least initially. I'm a little bit concerned about Michel's knee issues. This was something, a lot of the scouts had talked about before the NFL draft. I like the player. Obviously, I like the overall nourishment of the environment. I don't trust Belichick, and I think Burkhead is just very undervalued, and he's going to be a steal of the deal in the middle rounds of your draft and going to be one of those guys. Remember, he was a top 12 running back weeks 8 through 14 last season at half-point PPR. And I think he's going to be able to sustain that level of play as the head of this RBBC in Foxborough.
I agree. Burkhead's undervalued too. I want both of them. I think you can start them both every week, just like Tags has been saying the whole time.
You could start Deion Lewis and Burkhead simultaneously last year. It was very beneficial.
And that's how I feel. And I feel like this team has gone backwards in terms of pass. They lost options. Brandon Cook's going away. They tried to beef up the offensive line. I don't know where they're playing Isaiah Wynn, but I think he's a better guard. He obviously played with Sony Michel in college. So I don't think that Sony Michel scores 12 touchdowns. I think it's going to be a mixture. I don't think there's going to be a clear-cut touchdown scorer of this offense. I do think that, again, going back to this, I think that Rex Burkhead has always been a value. I think he should have been drafted as a top 30 running back all along, but I also think that Sony Michel is going to deliver value in this offense as well. So Sony Michel is a more talented player than Jerick McKinnon. He's playing for a higher scoring offense. Is he sharing the workload with Rex Burkhead? Absolutely. But at the same time, Sony Michel is a true 3-down player, and if they need someone to protect Tom Brady, he's someone who come in and I actually, in terms of all of my film watching that I did on rookie running backs, he was my best pass blocking running back, and it wasn't really all that close. Sony Michel shows like he's almost like a veteran presence. And again, as a running back and as a receiver, he reminds me of a lot of LaShawn McCoy. So if you put LaShawn McCoy in that Patriots offense, I think that you'd see fantasy results, and I expect to see the same with Sony Michel.
They run the ball on the goal line so much more than anybody else too. And if he's the guy that gets the goal line touches, and I know you think it's going to be split up, Tags, but if Sony Michel is that guy, a dozen might be too little.
That's the thing, is just like, I mean, we didn't see Deion Lewis get there. Obviously, he didn't take over the starting gig till the second half of the season, but it just seems like it's a team that's going to be a mixture of everything.
All right, Brad, let's move on to your number 4 here.
Jordan Wilkins starts week 1 for the Indianapolis Colts and becomes this year's Alvin Kamara in terms of draft profitability. Because he's not the same player as Kamara. He's not going to catch, 75, 80 balls, anything of that stretch of the imagination. But I love Jordan Wilkins' game. Marlon Mack, obviously, on the shelf for 2 to 3 weeks with a hamstring injury. The door of opportunity is swung open for the rookie out of Ole Miss. I love the skill set. You look at the advanced analytics from last season and you match it up with the eye test. I'm one of those guys that, balances both. And I think everybody should take that perspective. There's some podcasts that are film only. There's some podcasts that are numbers only. I think taking the best of both worlds and combining them to come up with a conclusion is the right approach. And, I was so impressed with his film against Alabama. A guy that really is a violent downhill runner. Tom Rathman, the running backs coach of the Colts, has come out and said, look, he attacks the seam, he finishes runs, he relishes contact, and then the advanced data supports that. This is a guy that was number 7 in yards after contact per attempt among all FBS running backs last season. He was top 10 in elusive rating as well. He's an adept receiver out of the backfield. He was number 10 in yards per route run. He is a legitimate 3-down running back. And behind an improved offensive line, you hope that Andrew Luck is even 75% of the player that he once was. I think with that greasy mustache, it is going to rocket him back into fantasy players' good graces because it is Joe Namath-esque, how glorious it is. So, you pull it all together, and Wilkins, going around pick 170 to 180 overall, depending upon which ADP site that you use. Again, the tidy profit is right there for the taking. Get him on your team.
If the Colts score 450 points and Jordan Wilkins is the starting running back and he's going undrafted right now, he's going to be one of the biggest steals since 2012 when Alfred Morris went undrafted.
Brad, I love that you kind of jumped ahead to that section we're going to be talking about here in just a second. But in terms of this year's Alvin Kamara, when you look for next year's Alvin Kamara, what you have to do is you have to look at a team that's going to be high scoring. If Andrew Luck's at the helm, most likely, and if he's back to being Andrew Luck, they're going to be a top 6 scoring offense. And you want to find someone who can contribute on third downs because they need to be able to do that in order to stay on the field to produce. Jordan Wilkins can do all that stuff. And as you mentioned, he's not a flashy guy. He's not going to sit here and he's not going to be Kamara in terms of flashing and you're just like wow plays. But he's a very good all-around back. He reminds me of a lesser version of Matt Forte, if that makes any sense to anybody.
Yeah, totally.
So again, Matt Forte never did anything flashy. I mean, he was a great receiver. I'd say he's one of the best. But I just think a lesser version. So if you have Marlon Mack dealing with a hamstring injury already, you had him last year dealing with a shoulder injury. He just might not be cut out to do this. Nyheim Hines has reportedly not been picking up the playbook very well. He's having a hard time. You have Robert Turbin suspended for the first 4 weeks. Unless you think Christine Michael is going to be a thing in fantasy football again, I'm on board with Jordan Wilkins as a excellent late round.
I can't believe we're still talking about Michael. It's craziness.
Oh, Bobby wants to. Is that going to be your?
I don't know what you're talking about, Tags. You're the crazy one, man.
Are you gonna also, Bobby? You gonna bring up Jeff Janis as well? We gonna go down that rabbit hole?
I'm not a Jeff Janis guy. I'll talk about Kevin White, but I don't think I'm allowed to.
Oh God!
I think my producer might take this out of the show if I mention Kevin White.
He might.
Tags, what's your number 4, man?
All right, I'll give my last 2 because I want to Bobby give my last 2. Have Brad close that out so we can get to the Kamara section of it. Here's my last 2. Chris Hogan is a top 12 fantasy wide receiver. Julian Edelman does not finish in the top 50. Ryan Grant and Anthony Miller finish as top 30 wide receivers.
I like the Anthony Miller call, particularly in PPR. He's gonna be one of those safety valves, as I mentioned before, along with Trey Burton for Trubisky.
Do you guys think Trubisky's going to be like a top 5 quarterback or something? He's got Allen Robinson, Trey Burton. He's got, he's got Tariq Cohen. You think all these guys are going to do this well?
He could be top 15. Top 15 is a possibility.
I believe Trubisky has a top 10 ceiling this year, and I am on board with that because even if he doesn't put up the bonku passing numbers, Trubisky is a very underrated quarterback when it comes to his rushing ability. He could run for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns, and I wouldn't be shocked. He was one of the best athletes at the combine as a quarterback. So with all the options in this offense, that's why I continue to say that Trubisky is like, if you're sitting there in a league and you tell me you're like, Mike, my league, they picked 15 quarterbacks off the board in the 8th round. I don't care. Sit back and take someone like Trubisky late and you're going to be fine. Trust me.
Or just Alex Smith because he's way better than Trubisky. But I think it's more likely that Anthony Miller finishes outside the top 75 than he finishes in the top 25.
No.
Yes.
Let's talk about Mitch Trubisky. Let's talk about his favorite options the last 2 times he's quarterbacked either college or NFL. It was Ryan Switzer.
Well, he threw 9 passes in a game once. Who cares who he targets?
It was Ryan Switzer in North Carolina, and it was Kendall Wright last year in the offense. As the year went on, you saw them building rapport. Anthony Miller is going to be moved all over the formation, but he's the starting slot receiver in 3 wide receiver sets. So Miller, I'm telling you, when you see the kid play, you're going to believe. That's all I got to say.
All right. I will watch that game this weekend on Game Pass. We'll see. Here are mine. The Panthers put their money where their mouth is and give Christian McCaffrey 360 touches as he finishes as a top 3 running back.
Rest in peace, Christian. He will be deceased.
I can't believe they're saying they're going to do this, but the thing is, you look at him and he's a strong dude. He's going to get 80, 90 receptions again. I think it's possible, man. And that's what these bold predictions are. It's not like I think this is likely, but I think there's a better than 15, 20% chance it happens.
Here's a bold prediction to go along with your bold prediction. C.J. Anderson outproduces Christian McCaffrey at a half-point PPR.
Ooh, that is a bold one. I love it. I don't see it happening, but I love it. I would love to see that, by the way, just because I'm tired of people telling me that Christian McCaffrey could handle 20 to 25 touches a game. He's not that guy. He might be strong for his size, but he's still a little dude. And the offensive line is still bad. They're getting Greg Olsen back in the offense. He's healthy. They drafted DJ Moore, who's also somewhere in that middle of the field. There's only so many targets to go around. I don't even think Christian McCaffrey catches the balls that he did last year.
And here's one stat to really kind of grasp onto, and the reason why I'm a little bit alarmed by Christian McCaffrey and that increased workload, even in a limited workload last year. He was RB 52 in yards created per touch. For a guy that supposedly has, kind of like chop suey feet and can really, make guys miss, he didn't dodge a whole lot of tacklers.
And their offensive line's not in good shape. It's scary.
It's
scary.
Yeah, it is scary. It's a little bit frightening right now. But the good news is I think he's going to make a ton of hay in the pass game, because if North Turner has an active brain, he's going to be featuring a lot of DJ Moore in the screen game, Christian McCaffrey as well, to try to get the ball out of Cam Newton's hands as quickly as possible, knowing that Cam's going to be under increased duress.
You mentioned arm wrestling earlier. If all three of us took on Christian McCaffrey, if we all used two hands against Christian McCaffrey's one, who do you think would win?
I don't know, man. I could do 6 reps on the bench at 225, so I might have a shot.
Oh, wow, dude.
It's all that tequila, man.
We've got like an all-star combine cast here.
Well, exactly. Fueled by Añejo. That's how that's how I live. It's how I survive.
All right, here's my last one. I don't want to end the show without mentioning it. From the moment Jameis Winston returns, he'll be a top 4 fantasy quarterback. I think the secondary is dreadful. They have a great receiving core. They've got the 2 tight ends as well. They're going to need to pass the ball a lot. The schedule looks easier when he comes back. And Jameis Winston, don't forget, in his 11 healthy games, he was on pace for 4,900 passing yards. He finished the season as the QB1 over the last quarter of the season. It's a guy with a ton of upside. I know he turns the ball over, but he's got a lot of fantasy upside.
Yeah, I could see that happening. Here are my last 2 before we move on to the next segment, guys. Jordan Howard scores at least 15 touchdowns to the Bears this season.
Wow.
And Cortland Sutton leads the Broncos and all rookie wide receivers in TD receptions with 7.
Whoa. You like Cortland Sutton more than Deshaun Hamilton? Because all I've been hearing is Deshaun Hamilton.
No, incorrect. It's all nothing but Cortland Sutton here at Dove Valley.
Okay.
And look, I've been out there. He wows. And, with a guy with his size at 6'3", 6'4", 215 to 225 pounds with an 84th percentile SPARQ score.
Yeah.
All they have done is high point. He is Case Keenum's new version of Kyle Rudolph, where he is not necessarily going to wow you in terms of receptions and yards when it's all said and done, but he's going to score a ton of touchdowns.
I like it. I like that a lot. He kind of reminds me of a younger Alshon Jeffrey before Alshon had all the soft tissue injuries.
He's a poor man's Calvin Johnson.
Ooh, wow. I liked Sutton going to the draft, but that's fire.
He was my number 1 prospect in this year's draft. I had him 1, Gallup 2, DJ Moore 3, and it was really close between Gallup and Moore because I like both the guys. But I feel that Sutton has a very special upside once everything starts to click for him.
All right, well, let's move on over and talk about the next Alvin Kamara. We already mentioned that Jordan Wilkins might be someone. Tags, why don't you take the next name?
We talked about it earlier, Sony Michel being attached to a team with, the offensive line is not as good as the Saints was last year, but at the same time, it's a top 3 scoring offense. They've been since 2009, I want to say, as a top 3 scoring offense. Being a first-round selection, he's going to get touches. And again, someone that can stay in on passing downs. If Burkhead turns into like somewhat of a slot receiver and they give him a few carries a game, that's fine. But I think Sony Michel is legitimately, him. Or, hold your breath on this one, that James White kind of just turns into Deion Lewis. Because if you guys remember, Deion Lewis was not someone who could handle a lot of carries, but we've seen James White do it in the Super Bowl, turn into that guy if they needed him to. So Sony Michel and James White, I mean, those two, they wouldn't shock me is what I'm saying. It's just because they're good players and they're on a great team.
All right, I've got a couple names for you. And it's almost exclusively backup running backs because I don't think it's going to be anyone who's really on the radar, you know what I mean? That doesn't really work. That's not Alvin Kamara. So it'd have to be someone who steps into a good offense like Kamara did. John Kelly.
Oh, son of a biscuit.
He's on my list too.
That was my guy.
All right, I'll let you go first with the rest of them then, and then I'll give all my names.
All right. Yeah, go ahead. Continue.
You can go ahead and talk about John Kelly too, because I've already raved on him on the show like the past 5 episodes.
Well, look, I love John Kelly's skill set, and, going back and watching the film, and again, matching it with the secondary analytics, I go back to the Chick-fil-A Bowl. Love Chick-fil-A, by the way. Very delicious. I'm still pissed off that they're closed on Sundays. But, if you go back and watch the game against, I believe it was against Georgia Tech, he did everything extraordinarily well. He's not the fastest guy, but he's got the right build at 5'9", 205 pounds. Strong yards after contact per attempt in his career with Tennessee, 3.5. He was 3.2 in that category last year. Number 7 in yards per route run. A guy that just gets it done. So he's got a legitimate 3-down skill set, and he's in what, if not the best, probably top 3 offensive environments in the league, and injuries happen, folks. Injuries happen in fantasy. If Todd Gurley, God forbid, is snacked upon by the injury imp, and misses an extended period of time, John Kelly is going to be...
He's an RB1, isn't he?
Yeah, I think he's a top 10 running back in that scheme.
Same with James Conner and Le'Veon Bell. D'Angelo Williams, he was a good player, but he was the number 2 fantasy running back when Le'Veon Bell was out, right? He was exceptional because they used the bell cow. James Conner's really impressed this preseason after kind of a lackluster rookie season. I'm a big believer in James Conner again. And then Justin Jackson. You talked about Austin Eckler being drafted. I don't even think Eckler's the number 2. I think it's Justin Jackson. He's got a great skill set. Again, this is a good offensive situation.
Good. I'll throw Chase Edmonds in there, too.
I just worry about the offense with Chase Edmonds just because he's obviously behind a bad offensive line and an offense that I don't consider to be high scoring. So the only other name, I had John Kelly on my list, so I think we're all in sync there. That's awesome. So maybe for a guy with your last pick, grab John Kelly. But the last 2 I had, again, I'm looking at a team here. So I think Aaron Jones, Ty Montgomery, I think those are 2 names that you should remember because let's pretend something happens to Jamal Williams or Jamal Williams just turns out to be not very good, that they go to one of these guys as their workhorse. Ty Montgomery was being drafted as a top 20 running back not long ago. So again, both of these guys have exceptional skill sets. They're tied to a top 5 NFL offense with Aaron Rodgers on the field. So that's when you're looking for these home runs. Like Alvin Kamara was part of the Saints. He walked in to play with the Saints. That's what I'm saying. It's just like look for guys like that.
This time last year, I bought a lottery ticket on Keelan Cole. I said he's the next Stephon Diggs, and he had a very identical rookie season. This year, I want to give you one really deep name that I think could be awesome. If it was a much deeper best ball league, I'd get plenty of shares of him. It's Roc Thomas. He's the 3rd string running back for the Minnesota Vikings. Absolute freak of nature athlete. Former, top high school recruit and everything. He went to, Jacksonville State. But you watch him in the preseason, he looked awesome. He's going to make the roster. And if something was to happen to Dalvin Cook and Latavius Murray, and that happens from time to time, sometimes a team loses 2 running backs, I think Roc Thomas could be the man.
He's another interesting one that if he doesn't make the Vikings team, because you got Dalvin Cook there, you got Latavius Murray, and he slips through the cracks, that's a player Washington should kick the tires on immediately.
Like what Alex Collins did last year.
Yeah, and somebody's going to be that guy. And Washington's a ripe environment for that opportunity to rise.
Cool. Brad, we really appreciate you coming on, man.
Hey, guys, I appreciate it as well. Follow me at Yahoo Noise. Check out the Fantasy Football Hour television show returning to regional sports networks across the country next week. Actually, August 23rd, specifically, the Kings Classic tags.
Yep.
Yeah, going to be doing that this weekend in Canton, Ohio. It's kind of our version of Tout Wars. The Flex Leagues are out there. They're kind of labor. So, it's going to be a prominent draft. Going to be broadcast on Sirius XM. Fantasy Football Live coming back this season of Yahoo Sports. Season number 13, believe it or not. And I have a Cal Ripken stretch where I have not missed an episode yet, despite all the libations that have flowed through my body over the years and sicknesses that I have taken on.
It's the Chick-fil-A, man.
It's the Chick-fil-A and the tequila. I'm telling you, it keeps you young. It really does. I have avocado face masks that I put on a regular basis. I'm going to be like Bob Costas. I'm going to be like 60 and, look like I'm 25. That's the goal.
All right, Brad, thanks again. It's always a pleasure.
My pleasure as well.
That was a lot of fun, man. Brad is always a blast.
Yeah, no, Brad, I knew that he was going to be perfect for this episode. That's why I tweeted out earlier, just saying that I was psyched to do it. And he definitely brought the hot takes, man.
Yeah, he was wrong about one thing. I don't remember what it was, but I feel a little bit upset with him because he disagreed with me.
Was it the Keelan Cole thing?
Probably. I'm really touchy about Keelan Cole.
Obviously.
All right, do you want to finish this out with stat of the day, buddy?
Absolutely. So the other day, I as I mentioned in the show, that I had trouble sleeping. I woke up and I think about things, and I had this idea in my mind to start going through target consistency from last year. You know how I did like the boom bust and everything in between series? I thought, why shouldn't I do something similar with targets? So I started fishing through everything, and I kind of realized why Amari Cooper just wasn't very good last year. It was too inconsistent of targets. There were just 6 games last year, 6 games where he saw 7 or more targets. There were 34 wide receivers in the NFL who had more games with 7 or more targets. A few names: Paul Richardson, Cooper Kupp, Emmanuel Sanders, Kenny Stills, Robbie Anderson, Marquise Lee. Like, when you start looking at Deshaun Jackson had more. So when you start looking at all these names, it's like, oh, wow. I mean, if he wasn't seeing consistent targets, it's going to be tough to be a consistent fantasy option. So the move to John Gruden is going to prove to be a very good one, and I think you're going to see Amari Cooper be among the elites in terms of how many targets he's seeing per game on a consistent basis. So just another thing to add to to Amari Cooper and why he had a disappointing season and why I see him turning it around.
I love it, man. Yeah, I've got lots of shares of Amari Cooper, and every single time I take one, everyone's like, dude, didn't you learn your lesson last year? Because I drafted him every league last year too. But yeah, it's going to be completely different. I agree.
Yep.
All right, man, that's all for today's show. And I just want to remind you all that we've got that offer going on right now where you can get a 6-month premium upgrade to our highest package by going to fantasypros.com/offer. Or if you're already a premium member, go to fantasypros.com/extend to extend it out 6 months. And thanks to the sponsors of today's show, NFL Game Pass, where you can go to nfl.com/fantasypros to get a free 7-day trial to NFL Game Pass. And also pristineauction.com. We've got the signed David Johnson jersey giveaway going on right now at fantasypros.com/contest. Go to pristineauction.com and bid on the hundreds of items that end every single day. That's PRISTINE. For Mike Tagliere, I'm Bobby Sylvester. Thanks for listening and enjoy your football.
I just wanted you to watch me dissolve slowly.